You're listening to Cosmic Cousins Soul-Centered Astrology. For grounding your ass from all the new age sass. I am your host, Jeffrey Allen Henshaw. Season 3 of Cosmic Cousins is dedicated to honoring the interconnectedness of our universal family through embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. Hey cousins, happy May, happy halfway to summer, aka Beltane, aka halfway through Taurus season. It's warming up. It's getting hot, at least in most places, if you're on the northern hemisphere, and so we're doing it. We're riding that cosmic wheel of the year, whether you like it or not, and we find ourselves in the heart of Taurus season. I'm currently in Venice, dog sitting 3 pooches, and I literally have a shaking chihuahua named Michael Jordan asleep in my lap right now. And so, do y'all remember the birth doula, Pisces Sun, Catalina Clark? She was on, I think, like episode 9 of season 2. I'm watching her 3 urban pups this week. They're old clients from when I used to walk dogs in New York City. And so they're all asleep right now, snoozing. And so if you hear any snoring or barking, that's what's happening here, because I'm actually recording this the night before. I'm not recording it on the Wednesday. I'm recording it on a Tuesday because my ass wants to try to make it to the beach tomorrow and kind of enjoy the day. And so anyway, thanks for being here this week. As always, welcome back. It's Wednesday. Wednesday is Mercury's day, the planet of communication. And so that is why an episode comes out every week on Wednesday, unless Mercury is retrograde. So happy Mercury's day. Welcome back. First, I'd like to address a question that I've been getting often. And really, I think it's important. I think we've probably defined it before, but let's go ahead and do it again. So what the heck does soul-centered astrology mean? So let's talk about it. Soul-centered astrology, it's upgrading the vocabulary of astrology by using all-inclusive terminology, all races, all genders, even all astrological signs. Yes, Cancer, you are welcome here too. This is what we're doing with soul-centered astrology, for one. Another way that we're using soul-centered astrology is by focusing on the higher octave of each of the zodiac signs and also of the planets as well, so that we can use it as a tool for expansion. And so with soul-centered astrology, we're acknowledging that we have free will here on this planet. So we're not doomed by the stars. In fact, it's the opposite. Soul-centered astrology is a practice of expansion and coming into our rights and living the best life that we can while we're here on this plane. And so by honoring the cycles of celestial bodies, we honor nature on this planet, and we also honor nature in the heavens. And so we look to the sky as a map or a calendar of sorts for cataloging our progress here on Earth. And so it's not a practice to supplement with our relationship to a higher power, but it's a practice that coincides with whatever belief, faith, or spiritual practice that you have. And so this is an upgraded take on astrology, yes. But it don't mean that we got to take it so seriously. And so that's why I like to look at someone famous's birth chart on the show every week. And that's why we have fun with the guest on the show. We can keep it light while we explore the dark. And I acknowledge that this is a practice that is to bring self-discovery, deeper learning, and embodied health. So that's also incorporated into soul-centered astrology. And I think the last thing just to say is that soul-centered astrology acknowledges that we are each, as individuals, a small microcosm of the universe. And so we're intricately woven together, and we're a part of something that's much bigger. And so this is the whole. And through this, we realize that we are all one and we are related. We are cosmic cousins. So welcome to the show. First up, we are going to have a mini overview of the current transits. It's your need to know for the week ahead. And then we're going to honor the energy of Taurus by diving deep into everything that you need to know about soul-centered Taurus. So that's the first portion. Second portion, we will be honoring the life and celebrating the solar return of the incredible humanitarian and fashion icon, Audrey Hepburn. Audrey is a Taurus Sun, Pisces Moon, and she's serving us some mad Aquarius Rising high vibes. So to be sure, I'm excited to share with you everything that I learned. I actually didn't know too much about her except for like breakfast at Tiffany's, so this is kind of cool. And she had an incredibly fascinating life and birth chart. And so we're going to do that. And then to round this, I want to say this is like it feels like an elegant and refined episode. So we're going to be rounding this sweet episode off with the wonderful opportunity that we got, which was to sit down with the incredible musician and Reiki master, Erika Spring. And so Erika is a Taurus Sun, Aquarius Moon, and Pisces Rising, which is almost the same combo as Audrey Hepburn. So it's just their moon and risings are swapped. So that's cool because we're really going to be feeling into the more cosmic energies of Taurus on this episode. And so, yeah, Erika is mad chill and super sweet and quote unquote down to earth like a Taurus should be or shall be. And so, yeah, one of Erika's many accolades is that she is 1/3 of the synth pop trio Au Revoir Simone. And so we're going to start off this episode listening to a song that she wrote and sang, and it's called Somebody Who NZCA Remix.
I want somebody who can't stay awake. I need 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 somebody. I want somebody. I
What an incredible way to start off the show. That was Erica Spring on vocals with the band Au revoir Simone. Erica Spring is a Taurus Sun who is on the show later, but for now, let's look to the heavens for our current need to knows for the week of May 2nd, 2018. So this week, the sun moves from the 13th degree of Taurus to the 18th degree. So you can look at your birth chart to see where these 5 degrees of Taurus reside on your wheel. And this is what is being lit up this week. And so if there are planets within the 13th to 18th degrees of Taurus, they will be activated by the sun. And so this is the part of your chart that you are shining a practical and down-to-earth light to this week in your life. Mercury is direct, thank goddess, and finds itself still in Aries this week, moving from the 16th to the 23rd degree of this pioneering independent sign. And Mercury is approaching towards Uranus in Aries at the 29th degree, which, by the way, there's 30 degrees to every sign. So Uranus at the 29th degree is saying that it's about to end her 7-year time in Aries next week, which is an epic shift. And we'll get into that on next week's episode. But what you need to know for this week is that Mercury, the planet of communication and intellect, is approaching Uranus, the planet of innovation, rebellion, and technology. So this week we are on the brink of some really radical, innovative ideas in regards to our path as individuals. But know this, our minds are all probably moving a bit faster than our bodies at this time because Taurus is slowing us way down. And also Saturn and Pluto are retrograde in Capricorn, and they got us all in these practical earth vibes and sort of reevaluating our understanding of this material plane. And so when we look to this kind of polarity that's happening, and we can also look to Venus too, because this is the ruling planet of Taurus season. And so Venus is in the talkative Gemini this week. And so we have a lot to say this week, lots of ideas, and this can manifest as anxiety if you're taking life too seriously. So loosen up. If you don't have an outlet or you aren't gifting yourself the means for expression, this could also lend you to experiencing anxiety and maybe even being swept away by the current energy in and around you. And so, can you locate in your body? Literally, this sounds simple, and we might kind of let it just wash over us each week because I talk about breathing into the body and locating things in the body, but our bodies are the vehicle for our spirit. So take a deep breath into whatever you're feeling in your body whenever you get the chance. This is our greatest tool. The breath is spirit, and we are inviting it in. So where are you gripping or holding onto fear or stagnant emotion in your body? And so you can place your hands there and invite spirit into it with the direction of your breath. And so we got a few questions this week, and sorry if I said I was going to get to your question and I haven't. I need to figure out a new filing system for questions because we're getting a lot in now, which is exciting. But there is one question that stuck out to me, and it's from our resident cosmic class clown at Flittergaggett on Instagram. Hey, Anthony. Anthony writes in, it feels like everyone's been talking about turbulent astrology for months. Are the planetary bodies ever going to arrange in a way that's noticeably peaceful or smooth? Mama needs a nap. Oh my goddess. Okay, so this is exactly why I started this podcast, because Lord knows I love me some Ann Ortley, and I can take doses of K-Pacha when I'm feeling super cosmic. But if I hear the word intense one more time, I'm gonna scream. Every week is an intense week if you are an empath, okay? So if astrology is your vocabulary and you're using that as a tool for healing or expanding, life's going to be intense. And because it means you are a conscious agent of radical togetherness. And just by acknowledging that you are a part of something way bigger, and by acknowledging that this linear path that we live on and live through the Gregorian calendar, which doesn't line up with nature, if you're aware of this and you're also breaking free from the mold and not operating from the I'm born, I'm married, I have kids, and then I go to heaven linear way of thinking, it means that it's probably because I think astrology might resonate with you because your psyche needs something bigger and more cyclical to reflect back to you your inner processes. And so your willingness to say, you know what, this old system is outdated. I need an upgraded one. This is going to create some intensity in your life. And so we live in unique times. And the fact that I can sit up here and say, you know, breathe into your heart and align your life with the moon and not get burned at the stake is pretty fucking profound. And so the veil is being lifted and major truths that have been hidden away from us are being revealed. And so, yes, it's going to be intense. Welcome to the new age, boo-boos. The world is your mirror. So if an astrologer is calling it turbulent times are intense, it probably is because, yeah, it is, but they're probably pretty intense themselves. And so I try not to overuse that word and just let it be known. You know, it's implied. Life can be intense, but it can also be a fucking ride. So get into it, buckle up, and let's look to the outer planets to see why this might feel like turbulent times. So thanks for the question. We have 2 cosmic planets right now that are shifting into new signs, which happens not so often. So Chiron just entered Aries. This is the beginning of a whole 50-year cycle, which is epic. And then Uranus is about to enter Taurus later this month, which Uranus changes signs only every 7 years. So we have 2 new signs in the outer planets, which is major shifts for us. But then we also have Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, who are all in retrograde right now. And so there's also like this pulling back energy. So it's pushing forward and it's pulling back. And this kind of could feel a little bit like whiplash. And so this is how the cosmic planets translate for us right now. But Jupiter in Scorpio retrograde is saying to us to reevaluate our sexuality and our shadows and the things that we keep hidden and that we're afraid to speak about. #MeToo. And then use this information to reevaluate retrograde your relationship to authority, Capricorn, your relationship to government and patriarchy, and shake up the structures and foundations of these systems to bring about transformation, Pluto and Capricorn, and then commit to your own sense of authority. Saturn and Capricorn. Start a new path of healing where you look at yourself first and take care of yourself first. Chiron and Aries, and be a pioneer in regards to your value systems. Uranus and Taurus. So it's intense, to be sure. And so the only outer planet that isn't in retrograde right now, isn't moving into a new sign, is Neptune and Pisces. And so we all know Neptune and Pisces, she's lost to sea. So there's also this spiritual, mystical, like overwashing energy that is kind of probably why we're on this podcast right now. So yeah, there's kind of like a tug of war energy happening in the sky right now, but I feel like they're all on the same team. I don't know who's on the other side, but there is this like push and pull energy, but they're working together. And so we can utilize this energy. And really, we're in all of that energy that I was talking about of like committing to your own sense of authority and shaking up foundations and structures and transforming our sexuality and taking care of ourselves and being a pioneers in regards to our sense of personal values. This is all energy we're in for the next few years. Pluto is in Capricorn until 2024. And so this is transformation to government and the patriarchy. And then we move into Pluto in Aquarius, and Saturn will be in Aquarius too. And then at that time, Neptune and Chiron will be in Aries. So things are about to get very new agey, collective, revolutionary, and also in your face over the next 10 years and probably for the rest of our life here on this planet when we look ahead. But let's not float too far off into the future. Right? Because really all we need is right here and now. And so the message coming through in this moment is to bring it back to here. Bring it back to now. If you're feeling whiplashed or pulled in different directions or in your head, then can you carve out time to be with spirit this week? And so how much time are you putting in every day to create dialogue with source? And so I know for me, I spend a solid hour, probably more, on Instagram, like talking to people on there. And I'm on Grindr and Scruff apps too. I'm talking to the boys, and I don't even know how long I spend doing that. But what if I spent that time talking to God or to my grandmother who's passed away? And so remember this: Spirit longs to connect with you as much as you long to connect with Spirit. It's like our outlet. So it's the power source to you as a living, breathing iPhone. So there's a lot of people I've been talking with this week who are feeling a lot of feels. And so we must charge into Spirit. And so I encourage you, just go on a walk. If you don't know how to do it, just go on a walk and be by yourself. And maybe leave your phone at home. And if you gotta cry, just cry. If you gotta scream, let it out. You don't have to hold on to it or keep it together for anyone. Life doesn't have to be so serious. Taurus, Sun, Gemini, and Venus, right? So go ahead and take a nice deep breath in, and we'll transition to our deep dive into Taurus. Oh, thank Goddess for Taurus. Am I right? The soul-centered Taurus infuses life into her creations with elegance, grace, abundance. And so we're settling into this new life that Aries brought us this new year, and we're grounding into it with assurance, with reliance, completely allowing ourselves to receive. This is Taurus. It's receptivity in an earthly sort of way. So I think relaxation is something the soul-centered Taurus comes to know and love and appreciate in this lifetime. And so Taurus can be very driven. There's a stubborn energy to Taurus as well, right? It's fixed, it's focused. And so when focused too much on the material plane, this can manifest for Taurus as being kind of rigid. But when Taurus can come to realize that they are abundant, and really all of us this time of year are feeling into this, but when we accept that we have a right to make money or the right to own nice things, this is something that I'm always working with and healing, because my mom used to say to me, like, if I would spill ketchup on my shirt, she'd say, like, you can't own anything nice. And so that's been a repetitive thought pattern I've been working through literally for years. And so you have a right to own nice things. Say this to yourself, Taurus. Say this to yourself during Taurus season. And when we are working with Taurus energy, this is a mantra that aligns us with the high vibe, higher octave of Taurus, because it's a relaxation that you will always be taken care of. Sort of like a retirement kind of energy. And so our trust fund baby, like, what would your life be like if you were a trust fund baby? This is the life into the realm of the Taurus. Not really, but it makes me think of like the Nine of Pentacles and the Tarot. So on that card, we have a hardworking, elegant woman with a beautiful gown that has the symbol of Venus all over it. And so she's enjoying the pleasures of her hard work and also of her garden. And then she has a little trained bird that rests on her hand like a falcon. And so we're taking this soul survivor, pioneer, warrior mentality of the Aries archetype, and we're bringing it more into the gatherer, or even I like to think of like prairie life, so like simple times with Taurus. So it's a slowing down of energy. We're transitioning from fire to earth, and the bull is a symbol for Taurus, or you can use the cow. And so Taurus rules over the neck and shoulders, and when it's Taurus season, it means we're right in the middle, nice and fixed in the beautiful life-giving season of spring. So yes, new life is all around us, and it's flourishing. And so Taurus's key phrase is I have, but I like to upgrade it to I value, because I think that this kind of elevates the Taurus's energy. And so when the sun lines up with Taurus, it means we get to shine a vibrant healing light to that which we own and value, and that of this physical world that has deeper meaning to us, which in essence is what we value on a spiritual level. So this is the lesson of Taurus. So during this season, it's a time to highlight our sense of worthiness and to accept the gifts and bounties of Mother Nature. And so over these 30 days, April 20th to May 20th to be exact, reaffirm your values. And so I've been watching Queer Eye this week because everyone's been so hype on it. So I had to watch it, and I'm dog sitting, and they have a TV. So I'm taking advantage of it, and my ass is like, oh, wait, it's Taurus season. I'm going to just hang out on the couch and watch TV. And so I think I watched the whole season in like 2 days. And if you haven't watched it yet, don't, unless you want to cry your eyes out, because it's so good. And it really got me realizing that, one, I value my family and tradition. This is something that's a part of the show. That they weave in, which I think is beautiful. And then also, too, I learned from watching this show that I value the way that I look and present myself to the world, and that it's okay to. And so cooking good food, grooming myself, wearing nice clothes, making over your life. It's really important on a spiritual level about doing these things for owning your self-worth, which is a common theme on this show. It's like feeling into the Empress Venus vibes and saying, you know what? I'm going to groom myself. I'm going to wear stylish clothing, not because it's fashion forward, but because it makes me feel good and confident and in my body. And I'm going to prepare a nice meal for myself and my friends. And yeah, all of this. Queer Eye, right? It's a perfect example of the elevated Taurus. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but watch it if you haven't. Tune into it this week, because I think it kind of is really inspirational in some ways. And so let's go to those who were born during Taurus season. So when we are born, we're like sponges soaking up the energy of what's happening around us. And so also we're like soaking up what's happening cosmically and with these archetypes that are in the zodiac wheel. And so Taurus babies, the first thing they experience of the world is the feeling of life being safe and pleasurable, right? We're in the middle of spring. It's in a place of enjoyment. Much different if you were born during Scorpio season, which is like we're going into the darkness. And so we're going into the light right now. And so, but of course, this isn't always going to be the case for every Taurus. So it's important to note this, depending on the immediate environment that you were born into, this can manifest in different ways with your Taurus energy. And so if you were born into a family that was volatile, or if you experienced heartbreak or loss from a very young age as a Taurus, which we all will at some point, but this could amplify Taurus's feelings of unworthiness of receiving, because the first thing that Taurus encounters with the world is everyone is receiving. And so if Taurus is not receiving during this time, it can manifest in ways of like lack of self-worth. And so this can also, I've seen it, and we'll see it in Audrey Hepburn's life, is malnourishment to the body. A lack of material needs. And so this is something that Taurus may experience in their life, is anything that is in regards to their body or the material world. So it can be quite complex and will manifest in different ways for everyone. But Taurus is all about bringing healing to the body and the material world through owning your self-worth. And so, right, Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So this is double or earth. So on a personality level, we would say that Taurus cousins are down to earth. And they may hold common sense and potential to understand nature and their bodies more deeply than most. But it's not from an intellectual level. Taurus can be deep, but they are more activated from living embodiment. And so Taurus's ruling planet is Venus, which can lend them to fashion, but not really fashion. It's more just like feeling good in what they're wearing. And I think of Venus as the planet of the sacred feminine. And so Taurus is here to be a beacon of light to the beauty of Mother Earth and the embodiment of femininity, what it means to be a groundskeeper for shedding consciousness to this earth plane of existence. And Taurus learns this in themselves by learning to let go of attachments to the earth plane, right? Scorpio is the polar energy. So instead, Taurus is learning to consciously channel their desires for materialism into creative expression to make new life instead of holding on to it or obtaining it. And so, which as a Taurus, right, all the signs are traveling into the underworld to evolve and come into their soul-centered self. And so whatever sign is your polar energy, like as an Aquarius, I'm traveling into the underworld of Leo, and then I arise back in Aquarius because they're polar signs. So As a Taurus, you travel into the underworld of, I'm sorry, but Scorpio. This might be the darkest underworld. And so Tauruses have a lot of digging deep to do in this lifetime, a lot of shadow work, a lot of releasing and transforming and transmuting, which might not be so natural for the Taurus at first, but they are really kick ass at it once they get the hang of it. And so we can see that with Adriana Rizzolo last week of all the shadow work that she's doing as a Taurus. And so this is what awakens you to the soul-centered aspects. And so you come back up to the surface with Taurus with a new insight from the realm of Scorpio, which invites you to pay attention to what it is that's underneath your physical desires. So any planets in your chart or wherever Taurus lives in your chart, it's an opportunity to explore your relationship to physicality and the desires and the emotional connection that's underneath them. And so when you do and truly listen to your desires and look for the emotion underneath the desire, instead of focusing on the desire from a place of materialism or control, we can then channel and align our life force with that of our soul's longing. And so think about something you physically desire in your life at this time, and then look for the emotion that is underneath. So right now, and probably always, I desire more money, you know? That's a really simple example, but it's an opportunity for me to be like, okay, what's underneath this desire for money, right? So I'd use this money to travel, to buy a new wardrobe, maybe get a dog, to eat really nice food, maybe go out to eat every night of the week. Why not? Maybe to take some cooking classes, to take music classes. So the desire underneath all of this, money and what I would use to purchase with it, the desire really is what I'm finding is a desire to live life to the fullest and to enjoy this experience. And so this is the undercurrent of Taurus, is enjoyment. And so it's great to be alive, right? So tune into your higher self to seek guidance on how to navigate your values and your worth in this lifetime. And so I'm holding the high vision for you and everyone that's listening. May your heart's desires manifest over this season and in the next cycle of this cosmic wheel. And so I love you, cousins. Thanks for tuning in. Let's look at the birth chart of Audrey Hepburn. The soul-centered Taurus acts as inspiration for feeling good in your body and for inspiring elegance and grace and transmuting our physical desires into a living embodiment of deeper meaning and connection. And this is exactly what the incredible legend Audrey Hepburn did through her life and career. I see her as a wonderful example of Taurus because she is refined and poised, put together, but also incredibly humble. And I see Taurus as being chic and talented, but not in your face about it, and not in a way that is invasive, but just simply by being. And so this is Audrey Hepburn. She was born on May 4th, 1929 in Brussels, Belgium. And Audrey, she incarnated into a well-to-do family, having everything she needed provided for her as a baby. And so her father was a British businessman and banker, and her mother was a Dutch noblewoman. And so what's interesting is her parents were fascist and were actually quite chill with Hitler, and they even met him at his headquarters and helped fund the fascist movement. And so this is something really important to consider with Audrey's life because, well, for one, she is an Aquarius rising. And so we see ways in which she was a rebel to this in her own quiet way as a humanitarian. But first, let's start with the Taurus energy. So with Taurus, I always think it's a great place to start to look at where the Taurus's relationship to money and materialism from a young age manifested, and so and how this might shape their life and their self-worth. And so she started off well-to-do, and so this shaped the first few years of her life, but it quickly changed for Audrey because her father abandoned her and her mother at the age of 6. which she explains in many interviews caused a lot of codependency and fear around abandonment throughout her life. And we see that reflected in her chart because her Neptune is in the 7th house, which could be translated as delusions and losing the sense of self in one-on-one relationships. Could also be projecting onto partners as well. So yes, at the age of 6, a huge shift happened with her relationship to self-worth, intricately linked to her father, which is what Taurus is moving through, is understanding their sense of self-worth. And so then World War II happened when she was 10 years old, and she is a part of the Pluto and Cancer generation, which is those individuals that are born from the year 1914 to 1939. And so Pluto and Cancer generation is a generation born to World War II and into the Great Depression. And literally the last year of Pluto and Cancer is the last year of the Great Depression, which ended in 1939. And then we move into Pluto and Leo. But yeah, Pluto and Cancer is transforming, which is Pluto, right, in their own life, and also transforming the collective as a generation, our relationship to our instincts and protection in regards to home life. This is Cancer. So this generation is a generation of those who may have experienced trauma at home, with the parents, with the expression of emotions and feeling safe and protected. And it can be deeply rooted in nostalgia and sympathy and learning to transform all of that to then become great caretakers and healers. And so this life of leisure that the baby Taurus Audrey Hepburn was born into was transformed. And so Pluto in Cancer, this was a big shift for her, shaping her sense of self-worth. And so one thing that she's known for is her slim silhouette. And we'll get into more of that in a moment, but her skinny frame was actually a consequence of childhood malnutrition. And she's experienced a lot of health problems because of this. She lived with her mother during the Nazi occupation in the early 40s. And the Germans restricted everyone to a minimum of food and fuel supplies. And so she claims she remembers living off of lettuce and potatoes. But just like the Taurus she still loved food. And despite the lack of abundance, she didn't see it like that at that time. When she reflects back on it, that's what she says, that she realized that she was not getting the food that she needed. But food still brought her joy as a child, and she learned how to make cake and biscuits from things like tulip bulbs and homemade pea flour. And she said she would spend days reading books in bed to escape her reality. She remembers the blinds being closed, it being really dark, and she had obsessive thoughts of food, but she distracted herself with books. And so obsessive thoughts of food is very Taurus, and escaping into books is very Pisces Moon. Inspired through her activism and humanitarian as an Aquarius Rising. But for now, let's keep looking at some interesting aspects of her life. So while in the Netherlands, she went to a boarding school, and she studied ballet at the Autumn Conservatory with Sonia Glasgow. And this is where we get a taste of her Aquarius nature, because she was a part of a collective group, Aquarius, that was revolting. So she danced secretly for ballet groups, raising money for the Dutch resistance. And the Dutch resistance was a secret group of about 300,000 members who protested nonviolently to Nazi Germany. And so when we say times are intense and turbulent now, I'm kind of like blown away really with the emotional trauma that this woman experienced in her childhood. So this is intense. And so this is an image that stood out to me when I was researching her life. But she said that the best audience she ever had, quote, made not a single sound at the end of her performance. And because this was the vibe. They could not bring attention to what they were doing as revolutionaries out of fear of being killed. And so this silence at the end of young Audrey Hepburn's ballet performance, literally it brings me to chills. Oof, Pluto and Cancer generation. And so Audrey found herself later on in life, in her late teens, living in London and then in Hollywood. And so really seemingly by chance, she wanted to be a ballerina, but she was too tall and lanky for that. So she started getting into commercial modeling, and she was discovered and picked up for the movie Roman Holiday. And so the character she played was originally written for Elizabeth Taylor, and the vibe of women during this era was much more voluptuous and round. And so there was like Grace Kelly and Marilyn Monroe, but there was something captivating about Audrey because she was a fresh, new, eccentric look, and she was just described as meek, doe-eyed, and aloof, which might have been just because she was starving, but this sweetness that she exuded, we could attribute to her elegant and softer side as a Taurus, but also the aloofness with her Aquarius rising. So we really see the marriage of her sun and rising sign throughout her life, in her appearance, but also in her offerings. And so her lead role in Roman Holiday, which was 1953, granted her as the first actress to win an Academy Award, a Golden Globe Award, and a BAFTA Award for a single performance. So she is a legend and was an inspiration to many women because she didn't fit the standards of beauty. She was lanky and awkward in her own ways, and she was tall and slender. And so she is a huge reason why pants and flats were introduced as a fashion trend, and she is responsible for dressing herself in many of her roles. She just had a natural take to clothing, and so she took risk, and she knew how to adorn her body to highlight the parts of her that were attractive. And so this is an attribute we might associate with Taurus as being very in tune to Venus qualities of fashion and beauty. And so her Venus was in Aries in the first house, making her sense of self and what she's waking up to as being a pioneer in regards to the divine feminine. And this is how she was perceived by the public as well. And so there's so much more we can talk about in regards to her life in Hollywood and fashion and all that. But to sum up her life as an actress, Hepburn was active during Hollywood's golden age, and she was ranked by the American Film Institute as the third greatest female screen legend in golden age Hollywood, and was inducted into the International Best Dressed List Hall of Fame. And so the fashion of Taurus is really highlighted here with Audrey, and it's cool to see because she was elegant, charming, and grounded, all qualities of Taurus. But she left the Hollywood world in the 60s to seek deeper meaning. She had 2 sons in her lifetime with 2 different husbands. She was engaged once and married twice, and she had over 5 miscarriages. So she always wanted to be a mother, which is more Pluto and Cancer vibes happening there. And she even had a pet deer at one point in her life who slept in bed with her, which is, again, very Taurus Aquarian combo, the connection to nature with Taurus and being a little off and eccentric with Aquarius. And so another thing that I thought was interesting was Audrey was reconnected to her father, who abandoned her in the 1960s through the Red Cross, and she supported him financially until his death with 0 expectations regarding their relationship. And so that's more in Pluto and Cancer transforming family through healership and caretaking, and also it lends us into the expansion of her Aquarius rising nature as she activated her higher self as a world-renowned humanitarian. She was gifted the Lifetime Achievement Award by George Bush Sr. in the early 80s. She held a mission for UNICEF in Ethiopia, where she had the organization send food to orphanages there, and she went to Turkey for another campaign, and she also went to countries such as Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala, Sudan, Honduras, India. She spoke 5 languages, and she advocated for world peace and dedicated the second half of her life to world hunger, which we see this Taurus energy, her experience with malnutrition during World War II, and then using that malnutrition as a catalyst to be in her body and to be high fashion. which Taurus understands this, right? And so she gains success and recognition here, and her part of fortune is in the 10th house, which would indicate when she's bringing her sun, moon, and rising together that she would receive abundance in her career. And the part of fortune is in Sagittarius, and so that's her midheaven, where we see that she built bridges for cultures, and she transformed her experience of war and poverty and hunger to then provide that for others, being an advocate for world hunger as an Aquarius rising, as a humanitarian. And so Audrey passed away in 1993 from cancer at the young age of 63. But what we will find is that her legacy lives on in many ways, whether through her fashion or through her humanitarian endeavors, and also in ways that are very mystically Aquarius and futuristic. And so let me explain that. It's pretty cool. So one way in which she's living on, I know I most recognize Audrey from the iconic portrait from Breakfast at Tiffany's, in which she wears the black Givenchy dress. And so this dress, 13 years after she passed, was purchased for, you ready? $923,187, making it the most iconic item of clothing in the history of the 20th century and the most famous little black dress of all time. And so this fashion, Taurus, raised money to help build schools for people in Calcutta, Aquarius rising. And so another way that this Aquarius rising still lives on, and how she still lives on even after the passing of her from this plane, is that Sophia, the first robot citizen of the world, was designed to look like Audrey Hepburn, and it was activated in 2015. Porcelain skin, long eyelashes, high cheekbones, a lean nose. And so Sophia's appearance was modeled off of Audrey because the creator said she was an unconventional beauty, and that's what they wanted to embody. And so again, Aquarius is the new age. It rules over technology, artificial intelligence, aliens, and cold emotions, right? Like a robot. And so we still, to this day, appreciate her beauty, fashion, and its inspiring technology. And so her moon was in Pisces, and she was a deep introvert and a hopeless romantic. And so the beauty, fashion, Taurus, the introversion, and then her eccentric looks, humanitarianism, being quite a bit alien at times. We see the Aquarius there. And so what an honor it was to learn about her life, to look at her life. And I like to study people's birth charts that are really doing their work here on this plane and who are offering in a vision for the future, because it gives us permission to expand into that as well, and it inspires us. So thank you, Audrey Hepburn, for inspiring us and for ushering in revolution and change in humanitarianism. We love you. And so if you're not following the Instagram for this show, know this, you are missing out. The Instagram is at astrology.cousins. And right now, we are well on our way with the Queen of Taurus tournament that's happening. And so if you haven't checked it out, you're not too late. The way it works is the Cosmic Cousins that are following the Instagram account vote on who is the Queen of Taurus. And so we've broken it down now. We have 8. We have Barbra Streisand, Cher, Ella Fitzgerald, B. Arthur, Coretta Scott King, Grace Jones, Katharine Hepburn, and of course, our dear Audrey Hepburn. And so we'll be voting for the final 4 queens later on this week. And then the next week, we will crown the first ever Cosmic Cousins Queen of Taurus. I love it. So get on the Instagram and vote. I know there are some people with broken hearts over Uma Thurman getting beat out by B. Arthur. So tell your friends, get into it. And now I'm really excited for this last part of the episode because we get the chance to hang out with and listen to the incredible music of the talented Taurus, Erik Spring. So let's transition into that. Erik Spring is a singer, musician, and artist based in New York City. As one-third of synth pop trio Au Revoir Simone, she released 4 albums and toured extensively for a decade. In 2012, she debuted as a solo artist with a self-titled EP on Cassine. And in 2016, she joined with Jenny Lewis and Tennessee Thomas to form the indie supergroup Nice as Fuck, with whom she released an LP and performed on CBS The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Her voice was featured on dance floor hit Paris, Friendly Fire's Aeroplane remix, on a variety of other recordings by artists such as Chromeo and DeLorean, and in the Octave of Visible Light, a meditation nightclub, and installation by artist Leah Chavez. Erika is also a Reiki master and teacher, and she loves making connections between her music and her work with energy and the healing arts. She's also a wife and mother to a beautiful 1.5-year-old Scorpio sun, and she is a divine living embodiment of the elegance and grace of a Taurus. And I think it's really cool because she holds a lot of similarities to Audrey Hepburn's triple tier. So Erika is a Taurus Sun, Aquarius Moon, and Pisces Rising. So it's the same 3 signs, but the moon and rising are swapped. And so on this episode, we get a really great understanding of Taurus energy and how it can manifest when paired with the cosmic signs of Aquarius and Pisces, which is really new to me. Another cool connection, and I didn't know we were actually going to be looking at Audrey's birth chart when I sat down with Erika, but Erika sent me a message afterwards and was like, I totally had a picture of Audrey Hepburn in my room growing up as a kid. And it's interesting, when I put their 2 pictures next to each other, I think that they have like an uncanny resemblance, which I wouldn't have really thought of until I put their pictures next to each other. But so it was cool to see that. So anyway, let's move into this beautiful conversation, and I hope you enjoy. It's really cool to have you with me because I know you as Reiki Master Erika Spring, and because we both worked together at Maha Rose, and legit, like anytime someone would leave the treatment room with you, they'd look so blissed out.
That's so nice.
Yeah, but I know there's so much more to you than just Reiki, so I'm super excited to get a chance to chat with you today, and I'm stoked to introduce you to the Cosmic Cousins who are tuning in.
Great.
So yeah, thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So for starters, since this is an astrology show, I'd love to sort of start out here and then we'll branch off.
Okay.
So yeah, let's start with Taurus. What do you love about being a Taurus?
I think both in the creative field of music and in the healing world, I think that the classic stubbornness has manifested in some way as being pretty opinionated when it comes to the direction to go in with creative pursuits. So I feel like even though I have a lot of questioning, wondering, worrying, that stuff happening, I also have this strong knowing what direction something needs to go in. And I'm grateful for that because otherwise I wouldn't be able to complete projects or, make tangible things in this lifetime. So I'm definitely grateful for that. And then I also have my husband has, and I have the same birthday. And
wow.
So it was interesting, being with other people and dating and then finding him and having this feeling of we share a similar worldview, so we can come from that place together and try to understand the world. There wasn't that sort of conflict or feeling that I had to explain myself from that to my partner or just this feeling of, so I have, and my dad is also Taurus and stepmother, and actually one of my sort of sisters in Reiki that really helped me after taking a break from doing music and wanting to step more into the Reiki healing path. She was just such a great, loving guide and co-conspirator and friend in that path. So I think part of what I like about being a Taurus is the others that I've encountered in the world that are these rocks for me, and these helpers and support.
Wow. So sort of like your cosmic cousins there with Taurus energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. A lot of the Tauruses that I know feel really like down to earth. There's like this grounding feeling that they bring. And I also think of like enjoying food and like the pleasures of this plane. And so would you say that's true for you?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like with that phrase down to earth, I feel that I hear that reflected back at me all the time. And I, even, as a teenager or as a younger person, and it's so interesting what's reflected back to you about yourself versus what you feel and how you feel that you are. That can often be so different. So, it's interesting. And it's also an interesting, I feel somewhat a lot of air also. It's interesting feeling like, oh, I have that. And then, but people read me as being very down to earth. So, I definitely feel like that's part of my personality and my essence. And then in terms of the pleasures, I think, like when I was on tour a lot with my band, that was challenging. There were, I like home. I like my comforts of my own bed and my things that I kind of am familiar with. And in terms of like the sensual pleasures of life, I definitely feel like I'm not as much of like a foodie, or I was raised mostly vegetarian. So I think there was a little bit of that, of having to curate my consumption or, on some level. But I'm very grateful for, the opposite side of getting to travel so much, just being exposed to so much interesting foods and seeing the way people live around the world, and just this vast examples of ways of being in the world. And I definitely feel like I've picked up along the way a lot of rituals and tastes and flavors of life that have definitely enhanced my experience. So yeah.
It was really cool to hear you say it's interesting to see like what's reflected back to you, like the way people perceive you and the way that you're feeling on the inside. And, you're an Aquarius moon.
Yes.
So Aquarius moon would lend you to a little bit more of that air element, and also kind of feeling like not so grounded, like on the inside. And I'm an Aquarius sun, so like I can relate to you on that Aquarius energy. So just reflecting that back to anyone who's tuning in, that Erica's a Taurus sun with an Aquarius moon, and then you also have the Pisces rising, which I'm sure we'll get into today. But this is why I love having people on the show and talking about this sort of thing, because often we think of astrology as very like one-dimensional, but it's offering us like a beautiful like palette of like different hues. And so when I think of like a Reiki practitioner, I actually think of more of the air signs, like Aquarius, Libra, Gemini, which is a lot more energetic. And so, and your Venus is your ruling planet as a Taurus, and your Venus is in Gemini, which is another air sign too. So you have, air is like a big part of your chart. And so you do have more of this like energetic thing going on. And so, and then we take the Pisces rising and we bring it in there, and it makes it like musical and spiritual. And so are you familiar with your other placements in astrology? Have you had a reading before?
I have, it's always so much information that I'm not, I'm really interested in taking a class to be able to refer to my chart more readily, more easily. But I am familiar. Like, I was thinking about our conversation today, and I was thinking about like some of the major things that I've learned from having my chart read and learning about myself through the stars. And one of the things that came up, which is, I think, definitely related to my path as in having a healing practice, was that my Virgo is in the house of health. And so I always felt a little bit neurotic or bad or negative about how I engage with my own health and how I'm always striving toward feeling amazing and feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
And, so there's that interesting dynamic with like trying to feel good, but also not getting fixated on fixing oneself,
mm-hmm.
and also letting be and accepting oneself. So it was very, very helpful for me to learn about that placement, because it helped me allow like, oh, this is a part of my makeup. This is a part of my behavior. That's just a part of me. So I can allow myself to have that precision, oriented in that part of my life. So that was really, really useful to me. And also, I learned that I don't have a lot of fire in my chart. And that was also really helpful, just to also to accept myself and to understand that sometimes it takes a little longer for me to get started with something, digestion, all the things that we need fire for. Sometimes I need that through a collaboration or from another person. And that was so helpful for me to understand.
When you say
Chiron, right? That was the other
what's
thing.
That?
And also Chiron, just understanding the concept of Chiron and allowing for this journey to be a part of my journey and allowing it to take the time that it needs. And that was another very profound thing to see in my chart.
Yeah, you're hitting upon a lot of like really powerful topics, and I kind of want to rewind to the Virgo in the 6th house.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering if this is where maybe Reiki has come into your life, because from what I remember, like talking to you about Reiki at Maha before, was that when you practice Reiki, you have like a word or like an emotion or something, like maybe it's like peace or something that you're like working on throughout the session that you're like sending to your client. So it felt like to me that you're not like trying to fix anyone's health, but you're rather there to be like supportive and like to like hold space. And so I would love to hear if that's right, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, definitely.
And and a little bit about your Reiki practice, and maybe also like how Reiki started to become a part of your life as well.
Yes. Yeah. That's definitely where I'm coming from. And definitely where I'm coming from when I teach as well. We're all capable of healing ourselves, but having that space is very challenging to create for oneself. So I'm definitely, sometimes I use a word or a mantra. I've gotten, filtered through different themes or things that come through for each session, but I definitely, the main emphasis is being present and holding that clear channel for someone to experience what they're experiencing. And then that's where the magic really happens, because they are doing the work and they're seeing themselves and they're participating so deeply. So just the other day, I just finished a 12-week Reiki mentorship course with some healers, and I was doing sort of a final meeting with one of the people in the course, and I got to do like a 20-minute session on her before she left as sort of our final meeting. And I just was so happy working on her. I just felt so blessed that I get to be in these sacred moments with people. And it just made me feel so excited to keep sharing this work. And yeah, just so grateful that people are receptive, that people want to move through their stuff. And yeah, it was very sweet. And I'm so looking forward to continuing working. So Reiki, I always tell this story when I teach, because I feel like a lot of people come to a Reiki class and they're like, I don't know why I'm here. I just felt called here, or I don't even know what Reiki is, or and that was sort of me. So I was playing music with some really magical women, and it was, there was at this band, actually, a woman who you may know named Sophia Knapp, who does tarot readings in LA, and she was part of this group. And she and her bandmate Linnea Vetter invited me to play keyboard in their band, and we were at band practice, and the bass player came in and she had like a back spasm, and Linnea said, oh, let me give you some Reiki. So they went into the other room, and kind of like what you were observing about clients coming out of the Reiki room, she emerged from the room and just looked like a completely different person. Her back felt better, and she just said, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. And Linnea answered, it's not me, it's the Reiki. And it just caught my attention. Then we went on to band practice, and it just was in the back of my mind. And maybe a year or two later, I saw a listing at a yoga studio that I was on the email list for that was offering a Reiki course. So I happened to be home in between some tours that year, and it was a big time in my life. It was my Saturn return, and I had gone through a big breakup and wasn't fair. I don't know if I had an apartment. I was just hopping around or just trying to find my footing. And it was a time of a lot of intense stuff and struggling, but also just so empowering. And I went and did this Reiki course, and I read the book Reiki Fire, and was so moved by the experience and took it really seriously. I did my 21-day cleanse, no caffeine, no alcohol, no sugar, which at the time was kind of a big deal for me. And then I was practicing on myself every day. And then that was just my practice for a while. I kept it pretty private. I started to hear a little bit more about Reiki in my world. There was a woman in my neighborhood who owns a vintage store, and she and I had always been pals. And then I found out that she did Reiki, and I started to get more of a community around the practice of Reiki. So, and then another friend of mine had told me to visit Lisa at Maha Rose. And Lisa was somebody in my life who was like, it's the same with my husband, like this person that you kind of should have met about 100 different times, but you hadn't really encountered them yet. So I think Lisa and I actually maybe had crossed paths once before, but I trusted my friend. She was like, you have to go and see Lisa for an acupuncture session or something. And I, went to see her and received acupuncture with a little bit of Reiki. And I just felt this, actually, I know I had already had my Reiki too through another teacher. So my first teacher was Deborah Hannekamp, and she had a yoga studio in Williamsburg. And then at the time that I was ready for Reiki too, she wasn't teaching. So I had heard about a teacher named Jean Bromage who was working in the city. And so I went to her class for Reiki too. And then around the time that I met Lisa, a couple of years later, I was still pretty much practicing on myself and more casually amongst friends. And then I wanted to get my Reiki master's. So I was pressuring Lisa, like, okay, you have to offer the class, And it took about maybe half a year for the class to be offered. And I think at the time I was seeing a few clients at home. And then I also, the Taurus woman that I mentioned before, she was starting up a community Reiki at a place called Carriage House Birth that is a doula community. And we were offering mini sessions for anybody. It was often expecting mothers, but it ended up being this really fabulous after work kind of $20 for 30 minutes kind of Reiki drop-in. And that was the real foundation for me. And that's what I always share with students who feel a little bit like, oh, I took Reiki, but I don't really know what I'm doing. It's in the practice. So that was the foundation for me to be practicing every single week on different bodies, on different people, and really sitting with the energy and being with the energy. And that's the teacher. That's the place where we learn to sit more deeply in the energy, to step aside from our egos, to channel and be. And so that was a very just awesome experience. And my partner ended up moving with her family back to Copenhagen. So that project stopped. And after taking my Reiki Master's course upstate, I started eventually working at Maha Rose. And that's been just a wonderful healing vortex on so many levels. Just every single time I go in there, I hear something floating in the air. Someone says something that holds so much wisdom, or I just meet amazing people. And it's just that energy of people wanting to heal and work through their stuff. And that is my story.
Yeah. How would you describe Reiki to someone who's never experienced Reiki or doesn't even know like what the heck Reiki is?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I feel like with my students, I say it kind of depends a little bit who's asking, because you want to kind of meet people in a place where they understand, but I say it's a form of energy work, and it's a healing art. It can be learned just to use for oneself on their own healing and as a tool for meditation and for learning about oneself and connecting more deeply with oneself, or it can be used also as a healing practice for others. So as a healing practice, it's a gentle, hands-on healing modality. And I usually share that it's, working with the chakra system and the meridians. And it's interesting because so many people combine Reiki with other things. So if you seek out a Reiki practitioner, it could be so different than, for example, what someone would experience with me or with another Reiki practitioner. And it's also this handed down practice with different lineages. So definitely Reiki can vary from person to person and what exactly they're offering. But for me personally, it's a very gentle practice just to rest and receive. And we move through a journey together in the course of an hour. And sometimes a lot happens. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that much. And maybe some stuff will happen later in their dreams or in their reality. Or sometimes it can feel really physical with heat and electricity moving through the body. Sometimes it can feel, just a safe place for someone to unwind. So it can really vary from session to session, but in general, it's a very safe, supportive modality for slowing down and finding that place where healing can take place. I use recorded music in my sessions, and I feel that there would be a beautiful intimacy created by allowing myself to sing to my clients and to use some instruments and have some vibration actually created in the room. So I'm really excited to see where that will take me, but it's sort of in the incubation phase right now.
Beautiful. I think this is a really...
Hopefully I can try it out on you.
I would love that. Yes. And I think it's a really cool way for us to kind of segue into because you're a Reiki practitioner and a healer, but you're probably maybe more widely known as a musician. I just happen to know you
Yeah.
as Erica Spring, the Reiki master. So you were 1/3 of a synth pop trio, Au Revoir Simone.
Yeah.
And you released 4 albums and you toured for at least a decade. And so is it true that band name comes from a Pee Wee Herman line?
It's true, yes.
I love that so much. So we won't talk too much about that band because you also were just a part of another band too. Do you say NAF, like the acronym, or?
NAF is the, G-rated version, maybe for her.
Yeah, which stands for what?
Nice as fuck.
Yeah. And is that a Pee Wee Herman line too? Where did that one come from?
That one was channeled from my bandmates. I can't remember which one of them said it first, but yeah, that was also a female trio, and I got to play bass in that band. And it was, speaking of not having a lot of fire in my chart, I feel like that project was just pure fire. It was birthed, recorded, toured, everything within about a little over a year. So the timeline of everything was amazing, and just the momentum behind that project. There wasn't a moment of questioning that we were in the right place at the right time or doing the right stuff. It was just this awesome rocket that I got to grab onto for a minute.
I remember running into you in the East Village.
Yes,
It's part of the Bernie Sanders campaign.
Yeah.
What is that place called?
The Deep End Club.
The Deep End Club. And then, so I just moved to Los Angeles like a month ago, and I was driving in the passenger seat of a friend's car, and I was like, that's Erica Spring standing outside of the Deep End, and you were here like not too long ago. Yeah, I almost had her like.
You were there when I was there. I think I learned that you were in LA after I already got home.
I had just missed you. Like I was gonna try to book a session with you because you were doing some Reiki.
Yes, yeah.
My friend Elise came and got Reiki with you, I think, and so
yeah.
So maybe let's talk about this fiery NAF, nice as fuck, the Bernie Sanders campaign, because it's so incredible that you've been a part of 2 all women bands, and it's really inspirational to a lot of people, and you're a role model for many, many women, and also just the way that you guys, because you performed at a New York rally for Bernie Sanders, right?
We did, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really, I was a very passionate participant in the New York City activism for Bernie, and it was a really exciting time. Yeah, I just was dusting off some of my little altar that I have on my dresser, and I have one of my Bernie pins up there.
Amazing.
With a rainbow and kawaii and some crystals and stuff, and something for my mom. And that was an incredibly magical time. I felt so excited and lit up by Bernie and everything that he stands for, and it was such a cool group of people to interact with. And I met, we had these group gatherings in the East Village, and it would be just such a great mix of people. It was such a great mix of all kinds of people that would turn up and feel good about these issues and feel like they wanted to help out. So it was a very cool time. And then this band kind of happened right around the same time, and we were on tour and performing songs about just these kind of powerful heart songs, and then we had an anti-gun anthem, which we got to perform on Colbert during the Republican National Convention, which really felt like a statement, and it felt so good to be a part of that.
What's that song called?
Guns.
Guns?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the songs are just one word.
I would love to play one or maybe even 2 of your songs on this show, so maybe Guns would be a cool one to play.
Great, yeah, I would love that. just the refrain of, I don't want to be afraid, put your guns away. It's pretty great message.
Wow. So let's go ahead and tune into that.
I don't wanna be afraid. Put your guns away. I don't wanna be afraid. Put your guns away. Crisis is not ISIS. Spilling our own blood. Oh, I don't wanna be afraid. Put your guns away. There are children dying every day. Put your guns away. Crisis is not ISIS. Spilling our own blood. The solution is revolution. Kill 'em with love. Oh, I don't wanna be afraid. Put your guns away. There are people dying every day. Put your guns away. I don't wanna be afraid. Put your guns away. I don't wanna be afraid. Put your guns away. I don't wanna be afraid. Put your guns away. I don't wanna be afraid. Put your guns away.
Your music has been dubbed as, and I found this online, it was a quote, a dream synth pop band. And you've been compared to the likes of David Bowie, Bjork, and even Billie Holiday. So I'm curious how you would describe your music and who is your biggest music inspiration?
I started playing music in the like Williamsburg indie moment that was happening, and we had this concept of doing an all keyboard band. So at the time it was pretty radical. Most people had drum kits, drummers in their band, and we were using drum machines and playing some funky keyboards that we acquired here or there, and just writing songs. And I would say, you know, a lot of the inspiration for the songs were about relationships, about longing, about heart stuff, and then and that's kind of continued. So I have a solo project now, and I had an EP that came out in 2012 that's out, that's available, and then I have another EP that's going to be coming out, I think, at the end of the summer. And I love synthesizers. I'm not like a super trained keyboard player in terms of like rock keyboard. I would love to be able to play that way, but I'm more of a synth player. I'm more of a songwriter and sort of a curator of sounds. And so with my new songs, I think they're somewhat like psychic reflections of what's going on with me. Sometimes I'll write a song and have it feels like nonsense. And then I'll look back a year later and be like, oh, that was extremely relevant to what was going on with me at the time. And I know a lot of songwriters have that experience. I'm interested in continuing to make music and to see what happens, because I just enjoy so much being in the studio and making something. That's definitely a big theme of what sort of makes me happy in life, is creating, making something, being part of that experience, usually a collaborative experience with someone else. That, yeah, just making something that wasn't there before, it's such a high for me. It's such something that I keep going back to and keep wanting to experience again and again.
I'm feeling a lot of your Pisces energy too. There's this musical, magical, otherworld quality to you, and even the dream synth pop would be like kind of like a way you could even describe Pisces too. And so, have you connected with your Pisces rising energy?
Yeah, I definitely feel like when I sort of heard that reflected from my chart, I probably felt somewhat of a relief. Like, oh, okay, this is my purpose. I'm allowed to focus on this as a part of my life, as part of my mission statement. So there's a push and pull. Like, I've always been drawn to performing, but I also feel like I'm not a very natural performer on some level too. Like I love the intimacy of one-on-one, and I like being on stage with others. I don't love being on stage by myself. So,
which is interesting, because you have you're doing solo music. It's coming out,
yes,
right?
Yeah. I have to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, for one, something I was thinking about, and just like hearing you talking. So the name of this podcast, right, is Cosmic Cousins, and it's really meant as an affirmation of how we are all intricately connected. And I imagine that being on stage in some way, like there's like this moment where you feel wholeness or oneness with the crowd. And so I'd love to hear what that experience is like, and maybe like, especially coming from like a Pisces perspective, because Pisces isn't about the self as an individual, it's about the collective as a whole. And so maybe the music for you and the performing for you is more in this like collective energy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what does it feel like when you like feel people like singing back to you, or like? Yeah,
that's so wild. When that started happening with Au revoir Simone, like we would go to like Turkey or something, and people would know all the words to a song, and it was just so surprising and amazing and surreal. So yeah, I think that's such an interesting observation. Like, I think what I always wanted to create was the feeling that I loved from going to see live music, where you're transported, where you are exiting the person that you were on the street or the day-to-day life and feeling transported by the music or just the whole energy of whether, there were visuals or just that experience. And it's very challenging to create something like that at a high level, like production. So I had a lot of heartbreak in my performing years, because I felt I was longing for something that I wasn't really achieving. I didn't always feel like I could get lost in the music, or that I was offering that to others. So I think that's such an interesting point that you made, and I think that really relates to how I was struggling during that time, because I wanted to create this magical collective experience, and if it fell short of that from my lens, it was so sad, so hard for me. So, definitely something that pushed me forward to keep trying to make it. So, yeah, but I think that those in between the cracks, the times where I did feel strong and I felt I was able to transcend and have a collective experience, was just amazing, just magical. And it's hard for me to even remember those experiences. I think they're really about that moment, and it's hard for me to even go back there. So yeah, I think I have always actually wanted to, I sort of fantasized about being like a backup singer, being part of something that was bigger than I would love to have that experience of being in a performance that I'm not carrying the sort of whole production or the whole thing energetically, that I can be part of something and trust that collective transcendence is happening. That seems kind of heavenly to me. Mm-hmm. But so I think that's a big part of why I'm like, the magic that I feel in music is really in the studio, and it's in that having the collective experience with the person that I'm working with. And my collaborator on my EP that's coming out this summer is a friend of mine, Homer Steinweiss, and we had that so much together. We just had these just wonderful explorations in the studio and of making sound, and giving ourselves the space to go into the unknown and see what came back. And it was just such a luxury. So it has been challenging. I'm also a mom, and I have a 1.5-year-old, mm-hmm. and it's been hard for me to get to that place since becoming a mom, because my time is just so much more limited. But I know that that's waiting for me on the other side when I have a little more time. So
yeah, it's really inspirational to see these three worlds coming together, of being a healer, a musician, and now a mother. And yeah, it's so cool. How old is your kid?
He's 1.5.
1.5. And do you know what his zodiac sign is?
So he is a Scorpio Sun. Mm-hmm. His birthday is almost exactly half a year from my husband's.
Oh, right, on the other side of the wheel.
Yeah, and he's also a Pisces Rising, I think, and a Taurus Moon.
Oh, cool. Maybe he'll be a musician too. I think it could.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for anyone who loves singing or making music, but might not have the confidence to put themselves out there or to perform? Because that's like something that you said that you might struggle with.
I would say that I think that being part of when there's others, like the early days of Au revoir Simone, we were so excited about what we were doing that it didn't matter if we were terrible. Like, we just felt so excited about sharing what we were making. So having that collaborative, collective support was so powerful. So I think that that's one option. And the other option is to just explore that. I think, a lot of performing teachers say that if you're feeling nervous or something yucky in your body, that even just going into the feeling a little deeper or acknowledging it can shift the energy. So I would say just see if you can find your comfort zone and see if you can keep exploring that. Because if you're feeling drawn to share, one thing I've learned from teaching also, and just in everything in life, is that, and in seeking out my own healing and getting help with my own stuff that I'm going through, there is so much that we share as people being alive at the same time, and there's so much stuff amongst humans that is, we're not having this necessarily unique problem or unique struggles. There's so much overlap with others, and I feel like letting ourselves be seen and being in situations where we can see how much we share with others will help with that. It will help to feel like it's okay to be seen, because we all go through so much of the same stuff. So it's not, it's okay to let that stuff be seen.
Mm-hmm. And so along these lines of allowing yourself to be seen, a big part of being a Taurus Sun, and I think it'll be really profound to close our time together in this way, because a lot of this conversation feels as though we're getting to really know your Aquarius moon with your relationship to group energies, whether being a part of a band or collaborating. And we're also getting to know your Pisces rising as well through your music. And also you mentioned expressing the unknown and the mysteriousness of the creative process. So I'd really like to round out our time with bringing it back to Taurus. And something really profound that I've witnessed with working with Tauruses and hanging out with Tauruses is that you all have a unique power to manifest, but that this will often result in a blocking off of the throat. And so Taurus rules over the neck and the throat. And so Taurus grows and expands and evolves when they learn to communicate and bring voice to their creativity. So when I say voice, what does that bring up for you?
A lot has been coming up recently. It's interesting, as somebody who's wanting to use my voice more in my healing practice, and as a singer, that conversation and like speaking, having to use any of my thorns or any of, when stuff isn't going right and I want to call someone out on something has like been very, very hard for me. So a couple of times recently I had this big shift where actually I think being a mom has kind of given me this, where I feel like I can't mess around. I can't waste time. Like I need to protect my family and myself and our well-being. And if there's something that I need to say, then I just need to say it. And I've had to learn that lesson so many times. The lesson being actually what a relief and what a joy it is on the other side of saying something that's hard to say. So I feel like that has come up for me recently, and I had also had a shift where I realized, I was coming from a certain place of like, okay, why do I have to be the one to say this stuff? And then I shifted into a place of like, oh, I'm in a place where I've worked through a lot of stuff. I can see this very clearly, and I can bring this up. And that's actually a gift that this is going to help me on my journey and help me be more prepared for the next time that I need to set boundaries, or the next time that I need to call somebody out on something. So that's been a major lesson. It's not super specific, but I just feel like that's been a really, really big shift for me in the last, basically since the beginning of this year. Just speaking up and letting things, it's okay if it's yucky for a little while. It's not possible to have everything be gentle and pretty all the time. And it's, so yeah, I guess also like not rocking the boat is sometimes an avoidance, and what has to happen is actually to make a mess and then clean it up.
Thank you for sharing that. And thanks for your willingness to go in there and for sharing everything today. The way that I like to close out with people that I have on the show, it's a little game. It's a 60-second game. It's called Cosmic Slip and Slide. And so
Nice.
I'll just ask you as many questions as we can get through in 60 seconds. And there's no right or wrong answer to these questions.
Okay.
And they're all related to Taurus. And so
Great.
Just the first thing that pops up in your mind is what we'll go with. And so go ahead, press start now. So what is your favorite quality about Taurus?
Earth, grounded.
Mm-hmm. What zodiac sign is Taurus's best friend?
Pisces?
If Taurus were a genre of music, what genre of music would Taurus be?
Ooh, soul.
Yeah. Who is your favorite Taurus celebrity?
Oh my gosh. I only know the ones that have the same birthday as me. Robert Johnson and Murphy Brown.
Nice. If Taurus were a place in nature, where would Taurus be?
A tree.
How many Tauruses does it take to paint a house?
One.
Yeah. And what does Taurus smell like?
Cedar.
Beautiful. I feel that for sure. So it was so fun to reconnect with you, and anyone that's tuning in, if you want to stay in touch with Erika Spring, she'll be teaching Reiki in the near future, and she is always offering Reiki sessions. And she is having a solo EP released this summer, and so you can also probably catch her performing in New York, I'm assuming, but maybe you'll go on tour too. And so you can reach her at Instagram at Erika_Spring, or you can email her at Erika, and that's Erika with a K, erikaspring@gmail.com.
Thank you, Tassel.
Thank you so much. And Erika has family visiting right now, and sent them out on a walk so we could record this. So thank you for doing that, and sending love to you and your family, and to your son, and sending you all the happy birthday vibes. Happy solar return. We
never get out of the city, and we're actually going out to the Catskills for 2 days. So I'm looking forward to connecting to some nature as a gift and just looking at the stars.
Right on.
Yes, Taurus Queen. Connect to that nature. So great having Erika on the show. Thank you, Erika Spring. This last song is from her solo EP, and the song is called Happy at Your Gate.
Were you waiting here long?
Anybody else trying to make that your springtime anthem? I mean, come on. Literally, just put some headphones in, put some Erica Spring in, and make that your communion with nature and spirit. Go on a walk. Again, thank you, as always, cousins, for being here. It's such an honor and joy to create this offering. I love it so much, and I hope you're learning as much as I am creating this. And so, if you'd like to book an astrology reading, I offer those. If you're interested in supporting this podcast, you can become a VIP member. I'm also going to set up a Patreon, which I'm learning about all this stuff. This is all new to me, but I've had a few people ask if I have a Patreon. I'm setting that up this week. If you're looking to deepen your studies through a supportive mentorship, I also offer that. So holler at your boy. You can find me at jeff@brooklynfools.com, or you can check out the astrology offerings at astrologycousins.com. And if you get a chance, please subscribe, rate, follow, share, tweet, I don't know, post, write a review. I haven't gotten a review on the iTunes and at all this season in over a month. And the review was not the best. So I need some love because we all need love right now. And so if you can help spread this podcast, it will help to spread the universal truths that we're dropping here. And so take it easy this week, Cosmic Cousins, and I'll see you all next Wednesday.